as we
putting
promised,
the
we'll be giving you updates as they come. Now, we're still reacting to the gubernatorial elections held yesterday in Anambra State, and our guest, Mr. Kekan, will be still, leading us. And before we went on the short break, Mr. Okeke, can you hear me?
I can hear you, yes.
Okay. You were speaking on the reactions as to why people did not turn up.
Yes, so I was saying that it's a simple combination of an ultimate lack of awareness on the importance of civic participation, namely importance of voting. Because if you look at the number of registered voters in Anambra State, it's 166,000 and some fractions. But when you compare that to the turnout, it's always less than 600 or less, 600,000 or less in terms of most of the elections. It's averaging at 550 for most of the elections. So what that tells you in the first instance is that a very tiny fraction of those who registered come out on election day. What is important is that what's more important is that it's increasingly the awareness is being developed. Another thing I needed to comment on is the fact that these beavers, introduction of beavers into the election has also kind of streamlined the figures to become more accurate. I voted yesterday at Emmanuel Ankan Church, Akwaka Milimudimunewi, at the Central School, Abo, where I voted. The seamlessness of the beavers, I suppose that what we had as the figures today, during the announcement, is actually the accurate. Probably the error may be less than point something. And maybe in the past elections where we used to have a lot of numbers, maybe that is prior 2015, we used to have a number of numbers. I think that this is the reality of those who are turning out. Then back to the reason why people are not turning out. It is a lack of faith in the democratic process. It's a failure of the democratic process in Nigeria, because people are no longer very much trusting of the democratic process. And no, Anambra too has a high number of diaspora members. So many of those people who are on the registered, who are on the voter register, some of them are not even in the country. Most of them are people who have left the country for greener pastures. And of course, we need not mention those who are dead, and those of them who maybe are no longer living in Anambra State, who have moved to other cities in Nigeria. Anambra has one of the most migrant population. So I think these are the issues. But of course, if you look at the current number of those who registered for this off-cycle election, it tells you that there's also a good addition to the numbers. And I believe that with the level of developments that are coming in there are new cities are springing up in Anambra State. For example, Ekulobia is becoming the fourth emerging city in Anambra State after, of course, Onitsha, Nnewi, Awka, and then Ekulobia is emerging as another city. So with that, I will expect that there will be more urban conurbation, and that people are going to move to Ekulobia and those Agwata axis again, and that may surge the population of Anambra further. And then, of course, that will also reflect in the number of registered voters, and probably also reflect in the number of people who are going to be participating in voting, because, of course, those areas are more like the student, educational, institutional areas. So I believe the quality of people it may attract, apart from those who are in business, because Anambra is known for business, maybe people who may be concerned more with the electoral process. But for now, the immediate causes of electoral, the shortfall in people who come out for elections is, of course, the apathy is sponsored by lack of awareness as to the importance of civic performance, civic responsibility, and followed by a lack of trust in the process. But of course, why we're saying that we also have to encourage people like myself who are in the field have seen the difference that beavers have made. Therefore, we can say with some certitude, some level of certitude, that votes count. And it will be very good to inform our people that if you have a voter's card, you should probably consider coming out to exercise your franchise, because with what we saw yesterday, INEC is becoming sitting up to the bill, to ensure that the votes count. And that is what I mean. Most people who would want to participate, that's something that they would like to know.
All right, thank you. So let's speak on this vote buying, right? Everywhere in the headlines, all the headlines that we read this morning, we're hearing bits, vote buying, not non-vote buying. How does this improve? Because you already said that INEC and INEC is working towards making the electoral system free and fair. How is it that we still experience this vote buying and discrepancies during elections, as we've seen yesterday?
Okay, well, vote buying, I wouldn't want to attribute any wrongdoing in terms of vote buying to INEC. I will tell you the two people responsible for this vote buying. It used to be first and foremost instigated by the political parties and politicians themselves. But I'll tell you, my dear hosts, that what I saw yesterday, it appears that the populace are soliciting more for these incentives. I saw active solicitations for incentives to be handed over to them before they vote. When I was giving a report yesterday, I talked about my own polling units. I mentioned earlier, where I will just mention for record, that is Akambi Central School, where we had people came early, but they didn't want to vote because they felt that monies had not arrived, the polling units. So by the time I voted, I was the first person to vote by 10 minutes past 9. Meanwhile, INEC was already set at about 8:30 a.m. But of course, I had to go somewhere else before coming back, and I saw that people hadn't voted. So if you want to ask, if I want to tweet why the vote buying has become a culture, I would say that it is being encouraged by people's active participation and solicitations. So whether it is hunger or it's greed or it is anything or something in the air or whatever it is, the people are as guilty as the politicians. That's what I'd like to say. People are as guilty as the politicians, because what we've seen in the field has shown that if the politicians would not even give, the people would demand for it. I saw people demanding for it. So just like every other thing you have in life, where there's a demand, there would always be a supply. So it has become like politicians are trying now to meet the supply, to meet the demand of the people. So my dear friend, I think that it is calling now for more measures to curb it. There needs to be consequences, both on the side of the politicians who give and on the sides of the people who request or who clamor for these incentives. We may need to remove the punishment or the monitoring of vote buying from INEC's purview and place it squarely on an institution like the EFCC. Therefore, we will now have EFCC official at every distance to make arrest. Yesterday, you must have seen the arrest that they made of certain party members who were, sharing cash at least 3 polling units where they were arrested. So I believe that more of consequences would discourage the growing culture of vote buying. And INEC is already overburdened, as it were today, with a lot of things as per the Electoral Act. And of course, you would argue that security agents are always at the polling unit. But I can tell you that from what I saw yesterday, security agents were onlookers. They were onlookers, active onlookers, as this vote buying was being perpetrated. This crime against our democracy. This very, I don't know how to describe vote buying, because it desecrates the sanctity of the process. It in fact insults the democratic process. For people to say that something as sacred as choosing somebody who is going to lead you for the next 4 years will be dependent on a paltry sum of money that would never even last you the next week, let alone the next 4 years. And so, as I see votes of some of us who understand how democracy means and how it works, a vote is something sacred, and we must treat vote buying as the cancer that it is, and find a way to introduce deterrence, severe deterrence, to ensure that both the politicians who give and those who receive are held accountable.
Thank you for your thoughts. We have another guest joining us to still, you know, we are sharing our thoughts, we're exchanging ideas. We have Chibike Mbahurike. He's an election consultant, Center for Democracy and Development, West Africa. He's joining us also on the show this morning to, you know, from an observer's lens, the Anambra State gubernatorial elections. Good morning, Chibike.
Good morning. Good to be here with you.
Mr. Mbahurike, can you hear me?
Good morning. I'm here. I can hear you.
Okay. So you are joining
you. I'm here.
myself and Mr. Okeke this morning. It's a two-way, three-way conversation. All right. You are just joining, and we are reviewing the election results that we've learned of this morning. I'll start with you, Mr. Mbahurike. What are your thoughts on this election holistically?
Well, first of all, let me say I'm happy that I'm shortening my stay in Anambra State. You know, I had thought we'll have it will run into tomorrow, but here we are. The result is out this morning, so I'm happy that I'm ready to go home. But generally speaking, well, I'm also happy that there wasn't, you know, issues of violence. I mean, that isn't much of violence. I don't know of any spectacular violence reported, you know, but we are really not happy that we did so much of engagements. We engaged almost every stakeholder. We sensitized the Anambra people. I'm not happy that we still have a turnout of less than 25%. You know, what that tells you is people have shown that they are not interested in the process. And it's very, very unfortunate. The politicians are conducting themselves irresponsibly today because the people have allowed that to happen. You know, honestly, CDD is very disappointed that regardless of the amount of work, energy, and time put into this election, we didn't record as much as even a million people. We had thought that we at least with 1.8 million or thereabout, you know, cleared to vote or registered to vote, at least 1 million people would have been something very, you know, encouraging. So that we say Anambra State is no longer business as usual. But of course, as you know, there's been a progressive low in turnout. Anambra is stands out in that regard. We thought we were going to have things differently. But having said that, I mean, the election is, you know, done and dusted. We have a clear winner. We are also very sad that there was too much of transactions, very widespread transactions. We noticed it here and there. And like my brother in the studio did say, I corroborate everything he said. You know, it's not just that the people are demanding, they are actually engaged fully, you know, waiting to be attended to. You know, it's really sad. What I can describe as vote and snap. You know, you vote, you snap for evidence so that you'll be, you know, you sensitized, you know. That's not a good one. This is a serious threat to our democracy. Of course, as an election observer, we cannot rest on our oars. We still have Ekiti and Osun coming. We still have 2027 coming. We continue to, you know, sensitize people. We continue to do our bits to see to what extent our democracy will be, you know, democracy will be delivered to the people. This is not for me the promises of democracy. This is not my own idea of democracy. Democracy is actually about the people. You know, by the time the politicians succeed in pushing the people aside, the ravages the politicians are causing our democracy, the people simply have to rise up and speak out, you know, express themselves. It's about people choosing who would lead them. It is not a one-sided thing. It cannot continue on this lopsided adventure. The people simply have to stand up and be heard. Choose among, and truly, we have allowed the worst of us to govern the best of us, which is not a good signal for our democracy. So much happened in this election. The turnout was very poor, giving me the impression that we simply wasted all our energies, all this while we're engaging the entire landscape. So much was put into Anambra election. Civil society were everywhere. And the Anambra was playing host to virtually everybody outside of Anambra State. Yet, this is how it turned out. But well, it's good. We have to pick up our pieces and continue to sensitize the people until we continue to push until our democracy, gets to the level we want it to be.
All right. Before we continue our conversation with my two guests, we'll go on a short break. New Day continues. Don't go anywhere.
Every second, every minute, every day, news is breaking, events occur, and there are new developments. At Signature TV, we follow these stories objectively, bringing all sides without bias, explaining the complex issues, breaking down the numbers, and investigating the issues behind the news. Anywhere and everywhere, near or far, wherever the news is, we will be there. Signature TV. News in your pocket.
Welcome back. So my next question is to Mr. Okeke Ayobi. We are talking still on election vote buying now. I think a few weeks ago, the INEC chairman said he was trying to propose a bill for the Electoral Offense Commission. Now, say we had such commission in place, and there are incidences where voters are clamoring for these incentives to be given to them. With this commission, do you think it would have helped curb this scenario that played out yesterday?
The commission is good because it will expedite what's it called, investigations of electoral crime, but the commission would not have its own police and its own army or its own officers. I believe the commission is like a court of sorts. So what's important is that, yes, the commission is needed. It's very important that we have, a commission that is dedicated, squarely to making sure that our democracy is preserved. Because if you look at it, it is a fight to make sure that our democracy makes some sense. When you perpetuate buying of votes in a democracy, you've killed the objectives of the democracy and you've defeated its aims. That's what it means. And so, not just the proposition of a commission for election officers commission, I would also add that there should be consequences for parties, an event that there are evidences, in widespread evidences of enablement of these vote buying, so that votes can even be cancelled on that basis, because I don't see the moral basis for counting a vote that was bought. I mean, I don't see. I'm still yet to be convinced that a vote that is bought is a vote indeed, is actually a vote. I see it as an affront to what democracy stands for, wherever it may be. But then, what's important is that we become serious about the matter, because as at today, it appears we are looking at the matter and that it is wearing on more serious look, confronting us. So the Nigerian states must rise up, not just the INEC, but the security agents, because the security agents are, no matter how you look at it, they are critical to democracy, especially because they're always on national assignment on election day. And so I think the orientation has to come from the fact that there are their consequences being enforced by the law enforcement officers on duty, so that it will be treated in the same sense that we see a criminal. You know, the way a criminal in a market is apprehended should be the way a voter who wants to be incentivized to vote should be apprehended. In the same manner, a politician who offers incentive should be apprehended like a common criminal. Will be done as it will be done in the market. And when you couple that up with the commission, which is being proposed by Prof. Joash Amipoton, then it will make more sense to me. Otherwise, setting up a commission and not having the security agencies sit up to their, I think there needs to be an elite corps. You know, there needs to be an elite corps of officers who would carry out this thing, because for what I've seen, the kind of all-looking I saw on the part of the security agencies yesterday, I don't know if anything can be salvaged, you know, from them. But if we have an elite corps of whether the police or the army or the civil defense that will be trained for this purpose, I think that will go a long way. Some people have also proposed several other solutions, including e-voting. E-voting will not stop politicians to collect account numbers and wire transfers directly, you know, and all that. So we need to look at a holistic way to solve this, because before it destroys our democracy entirely.
All right, thank you. So earlier you said in your polling units, the elections were, you know, went smoothly. Would you say that for all 326 polling units in Anambra yesterday? And you also mentioned the security measures that were put in place. But in the news this morning, we learned that an ABGA leader was assaulted, a corps member was assaulted. Why do you think that happened?
Well, I was sad when I saw the news of the APGA stakeholder who was shot down, who was shot point blank at the voting center. It was also sad to hear about. I'm just learning about the corps member now, because I've been in church, you know, for a while before I joined. I think that what played out is that Orumba South, you understand that it's one of those places that the government has been trying to rescue, you know, from insurgency, and I call it insurgency because that is what I look at. I see it as, you know, this whole separatist movement and all that is turned into some insurgency in the southeast. So it's one of those flashpoints where there has been rife with kidnapping and all manner of things. And so the killing of that shifting of a party is sad. In the environment it happened, I'm very sure that so many commentators may not be shocked, because that environment, that Orumba South, has always been, you know, a hot zone, you know, where you have a lot of criminal activities happening there. And so we may need to look at the CP, the Commission of Police Anambra State, of course, not the Commission of Police who held the election. We need to do more work in that axis. Therefore, the corps member, of course, some of the issues with this rough handling of corps members comes from overzealous party faithfuls and overzealous security men too. And so those needs to be addressed through training. So all in all, I would say that barring any other news of any incidences, these two incidences, we cannot use it to paint a black, but one life is a tragedy anyway. We can't use it to say that the security was not all that good, because I know that in any way not. The collation at the local government level ended at about
Mr. Mbahurike, can you hear me? Chibike Mbahurike.
I can hear you.
All right, I think I lost him.
I
Back
can
to you,
hear
Mr.
you. I can hear you.
Okay.
I
Mr.
can hear
Mbahurike,
you.
we are discussing the security measures that were put in place. Any thoughts on that?
Oh, of course, I describe it as an overkill because the deployment was quite enormous. I think we were told there was about 45,000 personnel were deployed. I think you're talking about security deployment, right?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So yeah, it is an overkill for me. But again, we saw that there were the military, all categories of security were in Anambra State. Well, we're not surprised when election is happening in just one state. The tendency is for all roads to lead to that particular state, and that's what we saw of Anambra, including the security of it. So, provided it did not constitute the level of nuisance we've known in the past, and there wasn't much of violence, I think to an extent they conducted themselves professionally. But as my brother earlier said, I was also disappointed when I saw most of the uniformed people, standing as if they didn't understand what their roles are in the PUs. In fact, in some situations, we call their attention, like, look, have the liberty to conduct people to be peaceful and to be orderly. Don't just stay aloof. I don't know whether it is about lack of confidence or whatever it is. I also overheard one of them telling a colleague to say, look, don't go too close before they will think we are telling people what to do. So you see, that kind of thing, they have to be properly sensitized and trained on what their rules are in the polling unit. The numbers are enormous. Ordinarily, there is actually no need for that, but then we know this is Nigeria. That has been the situation. But we're talking about a democracy where other jurisdictions conduct their voting and other activities are going on without any issue. We're also waiting for such a time where elections will not be an issue that will, that will suspend every other aspect of life simply because we're doing election in one state. It does not make any sense. It doesn't have to look. We don't have to militarize the environment, and it is also dangerous when you over deploy. I tell you that the low turnout we're experiencing, if you take a survey, ample number will be caused by the fact that this environment has been so militarized. We cannot be too sure what is going to happen. And that our security personnel, that overzealousness is still there. Sometimes they don't know how to approach people. They will speak to you in a language that will scare you. And when you see them, you will say, look, what is even my stake in this election that I will now go and cause myself some harm? A number of people will stay away because of that. And I had the interface with them. I was telling them, if they have a strategy where, look, you can just focus on the perpetrators of violence or those who don't mean well for the process, and ensure that the innocent people are comfortable. But you don't have to do it as if everybody is a suspect. That strategy is very, very important, and I think we'll continue to understand near perfect understanding what the electoral process is, so that our own conduct will not even, scare people from exercising their franchise or leaving the comfort of their homes to come out to exercise their franchise. And I'm sure, if, like I said, if we do a survey, most people will tell you that I did not come out because now everywhere you go, you see police, you see military and all of that. And there are also some polling units I go, I saw the military, which is also it's a concern really. I say, look, the military role in this election is to not to station around NPU. You know what that will cost. It gets as good as mine what that will cost. And we politely corrected some of them we saw doing that. You understand? So I think that's my immediate impression about this. There were so many, and we also looked out for the distribution. We also noted that there's some, especially clustered PUs. You see enormous number of security personnel. And you also go someplace, you will see, people are looking to be protected. So the distribution was lopsided. I don't know the logic. I can understand in clustered areas why you have more number of security personnel, but to deploy so much in those areas, I still don't understand. Even in INEC, if you had opportunity to go to INEC, the number of security personnel that were there is something else. So it's not just about deploying 40 over 40,000. It's also about distributing them, evenly and in a manner that only the flashpoint areas would deserve more police and all of that, without and distributing them blindly without any particular strategy. That's not a good one for us.
My question is to the both of you, but I'll start with you, Mr. Mbanhuike, first. The INEC chairman has promised when he came into office for a free, fair, credible elections. Now, with what we've experienced in Anambra yesterday, do you think he has started off on the right foot? And what suggestions do you propose that he makes or puts in place ahead of 2027 elections?
Yeah, thank you very much. Honestly, I have cause to discuss with some of my colleagues that, okay, you may want to excuse INEC on this because it's happening within a transition, right? And the former guy just left and the new one coming in the midst of all of this. But again, we're talking about an institution here, not just about the leadership. This is what INEC, they've been conducting the election over time. So even if the figurehead is removed and another one brought, it shouldn't really affect the thing, enormously. But let me quickly say that, you see, as an observer, CDD is an observer, and as an observer, a created observer, you can remember that the collection of voters cards was extended up to November 2nd. Yeah. So I made a lot of effort that PVC collection, permanent voter. I know the commission was started with 63%, collection, and then it tied into about 98 collection, which was described as very impressive. But as an election observer, we needed the documentary version of that data, so that we can, begin to prepare ourselves how we're going to focus on the margin of errors, margin of wins, turnout, and all of that. And that is the documents we need. Thank God, the election you have the result. It doesn't have margin of error or measure of win, situation because of the popularity of the result. It was an outright win. But when you have a tendency to have a tie, if it is absolutely competitive, you really need those data to really speak strongly on those details. So we didn't have that. I still don't know why we didn't have it. We need to interrogate that further. Having said that, Anambra cannot, for me, is a signpost to 2027, but for negative reasons, really. For negative reasons. I have not yet seen what worked perfectly here that we can say let's repeat in 2027. So my point from the report the previous report we have released, I mean the preliminary report and the one we're going to release, will tell you that INEC need to do much more. For instance, INEC have a constitutional responsibility to educate the people, voter education. Stakeholders, political parties, civil society, they also have a responsibility. But INEC have a responsibility to educate the people. I don't know to what extent that is done within Anambra, and because we're looking at what we see, if there were a lot of voter education, then you can begin to say either the people, like we said earlier, the people have shown lack of interest in the process. If INEC does what they expected to do in terms of voter education, and we can see it, I know they work in partnership with civil society. That was done a lot more. We have to do that. But towards 2027, we also think that the level of vote buying we have seen, the transactional, process we have seen is not something we can condone going forward. And I also know that ICPC and EFCC also have a responsibility to monitor what happens in that regard. And I also know CDD had opportunity to interface with the Interagency Committee on Electoral Security, simply because we want to also say if we see where these infractions are happening in the process, we can always call their attention. That partnership was built. But we need to see a situation where stakeholders understand what they're supposed to do and do it properly. But what I see largely is, like my brother also earlier alluded, the people are as culpable as the politicians. So if the politicians are all over trying to, subvert the process, the people should push back. It cannot work in cahoot with the politicians to threaten our democracy. So INEC has a lot of responsibility. We always remind them to manage their expectations. We also expect them to, each time there's an election like this, let there be a platform to review the process alongside civil society and all stakeholders. Let us agree on what failed and what worked, so that we know what we are going to revisit or what we are going to reenact next election. 2027 is too sensitive an election, and we cannot afford to go without any clear vision or mission, without any clear strategy on how we are going to had a smooth conduct of that election. Truly, we are still looking at all the different levels of the election, and our report will come out this evening. We'll have a lot more because we will go back to the situation room to confer and to, compare notes. Let's see what more, because what the report we did yesterday was to the extent of the process up to voting. Once voting is over and collection started and all of that, and what was happening in the ward collection areas and post-election, all of those reports will now be, shared with the public this evening.
Thank you. Mr. Okeke Ayobi, you can hear me. So we are still talking on the elections and preparations for 2027. INEC has promised the results are being collated. What do you think INEC needs to pick or change or totally overhaul ahead of the 2027 polls?
All right, let me start by saying that the most important change I would like to see with INEC is the adoption of technology. They need to adopt more technology in what they do. I'll point out certain aspects. I think we totally need to slow down with the paperwork, because of course the paperwork slows down the process. A situation where we were having collation at the ward level by 8:30 yesterday, it's not something that, because voting ended by 2:30, remember, but collation was on at the ward level up until 8:30 p.m. I think that what needs to be done is that INEC may need to have clerks who are from their own local government staff, to do certain things for them, so that we can have a quick progression of collation. Because most times the evils that we find in our politics, in our polity, come between the end of voting and the collation process. So that collation process needs to be made more swift. And the only way to make it more swift is through adoption of more technology. I saw yesterday that they were collating both electronically and manually. But I believe that electronic collation should be done in such a way that it can print out what is collated, after it has been done, so that we don't need to start have and entries into manual reads and all those things. I don't think those things are helping anymore. This is 21st century common. So INEC needs to adopt, smart printers and all that. So I want to see a shortening of the time it takes to collect results from the time the voting ends by 2:30 p.m. or whatever it ends. That's one concern, and I think INEC may need to look at. And then second concern that INEC may need to look at would be on the issue of their staff. There was a lot of issues with regards to some of the staff who did not know how to, work their results. I think that INEC should have more. They should start their training early, and then they should benchmark their training and probably repeat it when it is close to the election, so that those who are deployed to the field will be sure what they are going there to do. They won't be second guessing themselves and having even political party agents interfering in the duties of electoral officers on election day. So they need to do more with regards to the training, the level of training that they give to the ad hoc staff. It needs to be perfected better. Away from that, I also believe that it is now time that we need to open up an electoral offenses register. INEC needs to open an electoral offenses register. You see all these vote buying and all these things. People's name need to enter into electoral offenses, just like we have sex offender registers. You need to enter there so that we can have people who can be barred from polling units for life or for number of years, who should not near our polling units to corrupt the system, the process. Because what we are seeing is that some politicians are hell-bent. They are hell-bent on making sure that this incentive and this vote buying thing is entrenched, because that is the only way they think they can get votes, instead of using the mandate of the people to work. So what we may need to do is that INEC may need to open an electoral offenses register on which strengths that politicians can actually be barred from contesting election or be barred from coming around the any perimeter of this thing. And it should be a public register too at that, so that we can name and shame the people who want our democracy, to become so maligned that we may not even recognize that it's a democracy anymore, because we continue on this trajectory that we are going now. I don't know what democracy is. I don't know if I can still call it democracy anymore. Okay, and I think those are the suggestions in the meantime. Apart from that, of course, security agencies need to sit up. INEC needs to get that their electoral offenses commission immediately, so that we can have a speedy trial of those who commit offenses, and that there should be consequences for every electoral offense on election day.
All right, thank you. Thank you so much, Caleb. Thank you for joining us this morning, and thank you for sharing your views with us. Chibike, before we go, in 1 minute, can you just give us, an opinion? Other guests, Caleb spoke on INEC needing to improve or improvise on and indulge technology. Does this, in a minute, just help us understand? We're talking of diaspora voting. That's a form of technology. Do you think in the thing that INEC needs to improve on, do you think it's high time we considered these diaspora voting so as to increase the voters' turnout and also include technology in our system?
Yeah, over time we have been, 1 minute is a lot of time. Over time, we have been advocating for the use of technology. I mean, we have seen some innovation. We have IRA, we have Beavers, they're all technology. But we also want a situation where people can vote conveniently. We have seen that an average Nigerian has several ID cards. For so many reasons, they've been working perfectly. So I think all it takes for INEC to have the political way to say, look, people can vote conveniently. We can even accommodate those from outside. I mean, diaspora people. We can accommodate those on essential services that we've also been advocating. Once we have technology that will enable people to vote conveniently. Seriously, so that is non-negotiable, and I think they should do that fast. But I also know that INEC has submitted hundreds of areas that need to be tinkered in our constitution. I don't know how many will come out positive. And so, having taken that step, I think they have shown also a political way to ensure those things work. So we continue to push for technology to be deployed fully. I know that the issue here is there are always humans behind those technologies. So we also need to work on the people, who it is their responsibility to man those technologies. The technology is not just enough. They're not going to man themselves. It's Nigerians that will be responsible. And so far, what we've had is issue of people behind all of those. So truly, even though we talk emotionally about ANEC has really tried.
All right,
They have
thank
really
you.
tried, but they need to
Thank
be
you.
assisted and partnered to do much more. Sometimes I just realize that it is not just about INEC, it's not just about the leadership of INEC. It takes the entirety of stakeholders who are doing much more in election, like the security. All of any stakeholder can actually become a nuisance in the election. So it's for us to agree to work together, and then with technology we can make the required progress.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining us. I wish we had more time to, discuss this technology and INEC, but that's all the time we have. Thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you for
very
having me.
much. Thank you.
All right. Now, away from election, away from INEC, away from Anambra, we're discussing next Trump's designation of Nigeria as a country of concern. This has been in the news over the past couple of days. And with our next guest, Ken Agala, joining me to discuss these and the matters arising. We would come back and we will discuss this. Don't go anywhere. New Day continues after this break.